So I got the sway bar installed on the GT. That's looking all good. I did go out to the front clip to get some parts, and I noticed this is actually the front of a Mach 1. I was thinking about that because this engine bay is clear coated, and I thought that has to be off a Terminator or Mach 1, so that's an interesting surprise. So I did get these lines here that go through the front of the radiator, put the J-clip in to install these. These were bent on the other car. They were still okay, but they were bent up pretty bad, so I thought I might as well just go ahead and use this on the car. And the bumper itself, I forgot to put that on. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I put the bumper cover on, but I forgot to put the actual bumper on the car. And I was going to get another one of these when I was at the wrecking yard, but I had a huge cart full of stuff down there, a couple carts full from each wrecking yard, and this was just one more thing that I just didn't have the time to grab while I was down there. So I'll get another one for the other car later, but I did bolt this onto the front of the car, so now it's more safe to drive around with that, because I had totally forgot that I just spaced it. So I went ahead and installed the bumper, and then I reinstalled that line that I was just putting on. So then I wanted to install the power steering stuff. This reservoir is a new one. The other one was destroyed in the accident, and it took off the bottom nipple with it, so I had to fish that out. The power steering pump was bent, so it was touching the timing cover on half revolutions, and so I fished out the old nipple piece of that old power steering reservoir, and then went in and just started installing lines where they needed to be installed. And luckily most of the lines were all good on this car. I did buy a bunch of new lines for the yellow GT because they were cut from the previous owner. But anyway, put on the new bracket and installed the reservoir, and then I went for this bracket that holds the ABS module, and so I installed the hardware and I installed the bracket itself. It has these little side ones that go in here like this that hold it in and hold it against the body of the ABS module itself. And so then I just wanted to add a bunch of loom and just wrap up all this wiring that I had just finished, and that was really nice. It turned out well. You know, I was able to get it up in there where it's not pinched or kinked or anything, and then just held it in with zip ties for now. And so after that, new radiator. So this radiator looked like it was pretty new. It was in the wrecking yard. It was on another GT. I was lucky to get that, and it just installed really easy, especially with this new whole front end that had a nice core support. Everything was just the way it should be, and so it lined up nicely. There is a problem on the actual frame of the car here, where the bolt that you hold the radiator support to on one side is sheared off, so I'm just going to have to easy out that one, but I did get it installed and put one of the radiator mounts on. So next thing I had to do was piece together this intake. I got the cone off of a Mustang GT in the wrecking yard, but I did have to change out the mass airflow sensor. This whole area, this whole map housing, it was easier. I didn't have the security bits, the anti-theft security torque bits, because the mass airflow sensor on this intake that I got from the wrecking yard was actually different, because it was off an 01 GT and it only had 6 pins instead of 8. The other years, the later years, they incorporated the intake air temperature sensor into the MAF, so I did have to trade that all over. But so new power steering reservoir cap, and then new pulleys for the front here on the timing cover. These are just both kind of idlers, and the other ones were bent from the accident. And so these pulleys were really nice. The bearings seemed nice and everything on them, so I was very happy about those, and they came off a pretty nice car. So then when I went to fill up the radiator, I like to use this main radiator hose. This is the big radiator hose here, and I fill it up through here first, and that fills up the radiator and the expansion tank, and then you can see it start coming out of the thermostat housing. That means you know the whole block has coolant, everything has been filled up, and there's no air bubbles. So I was very happy to do all that. I wanted to leave the radiator and everything full overnight and just come out and see if there's any leaks just from any cracks that might be anywhere. And as a matter of fact, that main radiator hose that I was showing you that I use to fill up the radiator with, that actually was split just towards the top, and you wouldn't have noticed unless you bent it and saw the tear, because when it was all together in its normal shape, it was just slit, and that was from the accident. It must have torn it just slightly. So I was filling coolant, and when I put the hose on, I saw it seeping a little bit, and I had to jump underneath the car and look all around, and finally I figured out it was coming from that hose, and the hose actually did have a tear in it. So now it's good. I had a replacement hose luckily on hand, and I even got one from the wrecking yard that day because I knew I was going to need one for the GT, the other yellow GT, because it doesn't have any part of the engine hoses or anything. So I was glad I had that, and I just put that right on in 10 seconds and I was back ready to go. And I left it overnight like that. It didn't drip anything, and looked great. I even had a whole box of OEM radiator caps, and I used one of those, and everything's looking pretty good. So that's the update for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more Mustang content.